There's been a ton of NFL free agency moves happening. The NBA getting hot down to the wire with just under 20 games to go for most teams. It's just getting hot in that sport too. I mean, there's just a lot going on right now. The NFL, some big stories coming out. So let's get all right to it here on Raw Takes with Andrew Hoty. Hope everyone's having a wonderful day. Make sure to like this video, give us a subscription, and comment if you'd like. I know someone in the comments, our good buddy who has the Ryan Leaf username has changed it to DK Metcalf. It's Alex, my friend from high school. I know him well. He commented to make sure we talk about that DK Metcalf trade. Believe me, we will talk about that DK Metcalf trade as there's a lot going on in the NFL. So I just want to give that out there. And also make sure to check out all the social media links there in the description below. Hope everyone's having a fantastic morning. Well, I guess I should say later in the day, depending on what time you're watching this. It's morning as this is being filmed, so just we'll throw that out there. All right, let's get right to the NFL because I think really that's the story right now. So many moves going on. I'll start off here in Cleveland. Myles Garrett, was this all a ploy just to get a bigger contract? It's possible, but he is not going anywhere. $40 million extension. He's going to get mega paid. Myles Garrett will remain with the Cleveland Browns. As a Browns fan, I personally love that because Myles Garrett obviously is a huge fan favorite. Myles Garrett is also an all-time great pass rusher. But does that really move the needle for the Browns? I don't think so. They need a quarterback more than anything. It's the right move in terms of if you're going to contend, you need to make a move to keep a guy like Myles Garrett. So I totally agree with that. But I'm not so sure this team can contend without a quarterback. So you're paying a defensive end. You're probably going to get Nick Chubb back in free agency despite him testing it. But I think both sides clearly want him back in Cleveland. Jerry Jeudy's on this roster. So you got talent here. It's just you got to find that quarterback. And without that quarterback, this could easily be a 3-14 team again. I really think the Browns are a good quarterback away from competing in the NFL. I mean, they might be, I don't want to say just a quarterback away, but I think they really are. I really do. They might be a really good team that just needs good quarterback play. Like we saw a lot of the same guys on the 2023 roster do really well with Joe Flacco under center. And even when Deshaun Watson wasn't a mess. Deshaun Watson wasn't great in 2023, but he wasn't 2024 Deshaun Watson. Let's make that very clear. So I really think good quarterback play would increase the ability of this team to compete. So for Myles Garrett to be back as a Cleveland Brown, obviously it's going to get real for the Cleveland Browns in terms of trying to be a very competitive football team. And when you're Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry, you can't afford to go 3-14 again. So clearly this is the right move for their sake. They have to win some football games next year. And if you're going to re-sign Myles Garrett, that's absolutely the way to go if you plan on winning football games next year. So the talks about tanking and all that, that's, I think, out the window now. You just extended Myles Garrett. You're going to be trying to compete to win the AFC North. That's really where the Browns stand at this point. Doesn't mean they're going to win the AFC North. I have my doubts on that. But in 2025, if you're going to extend Myles Garrett the way you just did, you're not going to go try to collect the assets and build. That's going to be the move you take. You're trying to win now, and I think it's clear for the Browns. The biggest question is going to be, what do they do with the quarterback? Are they going to draft one because they think one is NFL ready between Cam Ward or Shadur Sanders? I believe in Cam Ward of those two, but I don't think Cam Ward is NFL ready yet. I think you got to give him time. So, and who knows if they're even going to have him available if Tennessee doesn't take him, but still. That's going to be the question mark. Are you going to draft a quarterback, or are these free agency guys like Kirk Cousins in the trade? Something like that. Is that going to be something that impacts the Cleveland Browns moving forward? It remains yet to be seen. What the quarterback answer is going to be the big question mark for 2025, though. Are you going to get a bridge guy and draft one? That seems like the smartest way to go if you're the Cleveland Browns, because I think Cam Ward is a guy that does need time. Even Shadur Sanders does, too, despite the fact I don't really believe in Shadur. But that's where I'll leave it there. Myles Garrett, getting the extension means the Browns are going to try to compete for the AFC North in 2025, and that's just the way I look at it. That's what the extension says to me. DK Metcalf going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, requesting a trade kind of out of nowhere. It looked like for a minute the Seattle Seahawks were tanking, but it's possible they might not be now, seeing that mega Sam Darnold contract come into play. But DK Metcalf to the Steelers, I mean, I don't necessarily know they needed another wide receiver, but obviously you make this move, you're going to try to get yourself to compete, at the very least in the AFC North. But at the end of the day, Russell Wilson looks like he's going to be the guy going into 2025. I think it's clear he was the problem, and that's why the Pittsburgh Steelers collapsed. I would have tried to keep Justin Fields, but maybe they're making that Aaron Rodgers push, and I think Aaron Rodgers has enough in the tank to at least get them to go 9-8 again. I mean, to me, it's a good move overall for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and obviously I think it's going to benefit them. But to me, I see possibly 7 straight playoff losses on the horizon for Mike Tomlin. Not just because it's his fault necessarily, but because I just don't know how the Pittsburgh Steelers are really pushing the envelope here. I really think it's important for them to kind of try to reset a little bit. Maybe try to find a new quarterback in next year's draft class. Or, it's tough for them because they're probably going to be bubbling 9-8 anyway. When you have Mike Tomlin as your head coach, you're not going to have a losing season. So I already could promise you the Pittsburgh Steelers are not going to be below 500. But having said that, DK Metcalf, good enough weapon for Russell Wilson. They do have some prior chemistry during the times in Seattle, so that might help out a little bit. DK Metcalf is pretty familiar with Russell Wilson overall, and they did have some very, very good moments. So I think that might be another good reason to get DK Metcalf. But is this Russell Wilson the same Russell Wilson that was in Seattle? I don't think so. So if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers right now, you're going to have Russell Wilson be the guy. This might be the right move for you, but is it going to really push the needle for you? I really don't think so. I don't see this as a move that's going to be a sustainable playoff execution move. I don't see this team winning a playoff game because of this move. I really don't. But, there's still a whole draft to go. Pittsburgh does have a pretty good defense overall. Their offense has very, very talented players. When you look at George Pickens, despite him being a locker room problem, in my opinion, I think George Pickens is still a very talented wide receiver. DK Metcalf, I think, is going to eliminate some of the drama a little bit. DK Metcalf seems to be a guy that's a lot more focused on catching passes and making plays. So, seeing that DK Metcalf wanted out of Seattle, clearly there was something going on there that he didn't love. But now that Sam Darnold's there, could have that been a good enough of a push to keep him in Seattle? I don't know. But Sam Darnold, clearly something the Seahawks saw. They fell in love with him. And, I thought it was weird they traded Geno Smith. They did go 10-7 last year. I know they missed the playoffs. But when you're 10-7, you're this close to really pushing the envelope to getting into the postseason. So I thought it was weird the Seahawks kind of broke everything up and started to kind of hit the reset button. But now that they got Sam Darnold, is Sam Darnold going to be enough? He's familiar with the NFC West. He was a backup with the San Francisco 49ers. So is that going to be a good thing for the Seattle Seahawks to push the envelope with him a little bit? It might be, or are we going to see the Sam Darnold we saw prior to last season? Or I guess you should say in those last 2 games of last year against the Detroit Lions and against the LA Rams. And now he's going to be playing the LA Rams twice a year. So I'm not so sure the Sam Darnold contract makes sense. Having said that, though, I understand it. He did have a very good season overall, and it's probably dumb to not trust him completely. It seems like he's got a good chance when all the right pieces are in place. But now that DK Metcalf's not with the Seattle Seahawks, I don't know if that's going to be a good move for Seattle. So Sam Darnold signing that mega deal there, they must just see something in Sam Darnold they really, really like. So that's just my takeaway there. And look at the San Francisco 49ers. Dre Greenlaw now gone. I mean, so many of the players and pieces are starting to scatter all over. And is this to pay Brock Purdy, or is this to kind of help the San Francisco 49ers reset into becoming a Super Bowl team? I don't necessarily know if I see that now. The LA Rams look a lot better on paper, and I think they have a good backup quarterback situation now that Jimmy G is there. And Stafford signing that extension. They have the weapons to compete. I don't want to play the LA Rams. The Seattle Seahawks, they seem to be a little bit more of a question mark. Arizona, I think, is not taken seriously anymore. Despite the fact I don't think Arizona is great, I think Arizona will play some really good football games still next year if Marvin Harrison Jr. does take the next step. And although I don't believe in Kyler Murray overall, Kyler Murray, if he just gets the football to the weapons, then you're in good shape if you're Arizona. So I don't know if I like San Francisco's positioning, losing all those players, having Brock Purdy under center. Even though Brock Purdy I think is pretty good, I still have question marks about how San Francisco is going to be in the NFC West title conversation, let alone an NFL title conversation. And there's just so many other free agency moves when you look at what's going on, including Justin Fields going to the New York Jets. I think that's actually probably an okay move. I think Justin Fields does have his best years of football ahead of him. Aaron Glenn is there. It's a new culture. Is it going to be that culture reset? Is Justin Fields going to be the Aaron Glenn type of quarterback that we see? Obviously, Aaron Glenn's the head coach, and he's a defensive guy, but are they going to have a good offensive coordinator and scheme to plan out? The New York Jets have been a mess. I'll just say that right off the rip. I think it's obvious to everybody they've been a mess. They haven't made the playoffs since 2010. But having said that, the New York Jets are in a position right now where they do need a quarterback with no Aaron Rodgers, and they don't have a high enough draft pick to go get one. And it doesn't look like this is going to be the best draft class in the world. So I think you had to go out and get a quarterback in free agency. And Justin Fields might not be a bad option for you. Now, we have to see what the Jets do, I think, in overall in terms of the tough competitiveness. I like Aaron Glenn and what he brings to the table. Like, we're the freaking New York Jets guy, you know? I love that attitude, and I think that's kind of like that Dan Campbell mantra. But is Aaron Glenn going to try hard to be Dan Campbell, or is he going to actually resonate with these guys and get them going? That's going to be the question for the New York Jets, because that's a fan base that's hungry for a really, really quick turnaround. Justin Fields could be a guy that does that. He's very, very mobile. I don't know if the arm talent is as good as some of the other guys in the league, but I think if Justin Fields could throw the ball enough downfield to be consistent while still being a mobile quarterback and avoiding injury, Justin Fields could be a very, very good quarterback in this league. I really think so. And you still have to play the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen signing a $330 million extension. I mean, you're going to have to play them twice a year, and that's going to be tough for the New York Jets. But as we move on to the Buffalo Bills now, you look at Josh Allen's mega deal. That's $100 million more than the Deshaun Watson contract, which was a total failure. So now, let's just say this, okay? So we obviously know the Deshaun Watson contract is a total failure at this point. $230 million guaranteed, and the talk was no quarterback's going to get that kind of guaranteed money again. No, that's not the case anymore. All these guys are getting their guaranteed money. Lamar Jackson got it. Joe Burrow got it. Guys who are now proven in this league are getting guaranteed money because of that contract. So the whole notion that that Deshaun Watson contract was never going to happen again for other guys, it's happening around the league like mad. And Josh Allen is the new latest example of that. $330 million. I mean, woo, mega cash. The problem, obviously, with the Buffalo Bills is one very fatal flaw. They can never pass the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs. Is next year going to be the year they do so? We'll have to see. Obviously, you have the guy in Josh Allen. So Josh Allen is going to be your guy. And I'm not saying that Josh Allen isn't going to be able to get you over the hump of KC. I think he is built to do so. He's a very, very good quarterback. But that's still the biggest flaw. How are the Buffalo Bills going to construct a roster to finally pass up the Kansas City Chiefs is going to be their biggest question. But obviously, this is an extension that needed to happen. Josh Allen clearly doesn't need to go anywhere. So, having said that, that's a good move for the Buffalo Bills to have that guy locked in long term. There's still plenty of other free agency moves going on in trades, and another interesting trade taking place with the Las Vegas Raiders. Geno Smith going there to reunite with Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll didn't seem to make a huge push to get Russell Wilson back. He must believe in Geno Smith that much. And listen, Geno Smith, I think, has had 3 really, really good NFL seasons. I think he's a good quarterback. He's not a great quarterback, but a good one. And if you're the Raiders, you get some familiarity in the building. You clearly don't have a draft pick to go get a new quarterback, and you're going to have to let him rebuild with now Bo Nix in your division and the Justin Herbert and, of course, Patrick Mahomes and the juggernaut Kansas City Chiefs. So a guy like Geno Smith could probably get you in there and compete right away. I still think the Raiders, though, are a mess of an organization. I actually thought Antonio Pierce needed more time. I think it was way too quick to fire him. Having said that, though, Pete Carroll has proven, I get it, that he is 73 years old, and that's not to knock his age, because he is an all-time great head coach, but Pete Carroll is not going to be the Las Vegas Raiders coach for the long run. I think at some point he is going to end up retiring from football and enjoying his life afterwards. I just don't think he's going to be a long-time head coach for the Raiders. I might be wrong. He might coach a good 10 more years. Maybe he'll be the oldest head coach ever at 83 years old then. But I'm not so sure that Pete Carroll is going to be your head coach long term. I think if you hire a guy like Pete Carroll, you're trying to kind of win a Super Bowl within the next 2 to 3 seasons. And I don't think the Las Vegas Raiders are anywhere near doing that. So that's going to be a big question mark for me. But you get a guy like Geno Smith. The Raiders could try to build something special here, I guess. I mean, the Raiders, to me, they're just not really a well-run organization. Now, I'll say this. They went out and got a guy that's going to bring stability in Pete Carroll, so that might really, really help them out. But they're just not a well-run organization, and that starts from the top down. Mark Davis is a very, very bad owner, in my opinion. And now you have Tom Brady in the building. How much say does he really have in all this? I don't know, but I'm sure he's going to have a lot of football say. And all-time greats don't necessarily make all-time executives. Look at Michael Jordan and the dynasty the Charlotte Hornets created, being bad. Being bad. So I'm not so sure Tom Brady is going to be that much of an input when it comes to the Las Vegas Raiders, but I could be wrong there. Maybe he ends up being a great executive. And Pete Carroll, as I said, is stability at the end of the day. And Geno Smith is a guy who I think the last 3 years has proved he could be a very solid quarterback in Seattle. So he's staying relatively on the West Coast in Las Vegas, and that could be something that becomes a 9-8 football team. I mean, the Raiders could be a 9-8 football team next year and just make the playoffs and then lose, like the Pittsburgh Steelers do every year. It's perfect. It's perfect. But having said that, though, yeah, there's still a lot of question marks about the Raiders, but I understand why they made the move. They can't go get a quarterback in their draft positioning right now, so why not make a move like that? And that's a lot of the NFL moves right now. A lot of interesting ones. I think Myles Garrett re-signing here, to me, not just because I'm a Cleveland Browns fan, is the most interesting because really was this a play just to get a contract extension to request a trade and to claim you want to go win the Super Bowl, or was that really just a ploy, or did he actually want it and the Browns just paid him so much money he threw it away? To me, I think it might have been a ploy now. That's why I'm kind of fascinated by that. But I guess there's going to be a lot of questions to answer in press conferences. We're going to have to see what Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski have to say about getting this deal done and what Myles Garrett has to say about remaining with the Cleveland Browns, because it did seem like there was actual frustration behind not being a contender, which I can understand. If I'm Myles, he had all the leverage to do so. Jimmy Haslam obviously declining the meeting, and if I'm Jimmy Haslam, I would have accepted that meeting. I would have. Now, having said that, it doesn't mean I would have made the move to either extend or trade him. I think that was smart on Jimmy Haslam's part to kind of reroute that to Andrew Berry. I wouldn't have made that decision, but I would still speak to an all-time great player. What if Jose Ramirez, and I know this is a different sport, what if Jose Ramirez wanted to request a meeting with the Dolans? You think the Dolans are going to deny that? I don't think so. What if Aaron Judge wanted to meet with Yankees ownership? You think they're going to deny that? I don't think so. What if LeBron James wanted to meet with Jeannie Buss in the Los Angeles Lakers? Think the Lakers are going to deny that? Absolutely not. He's pretty much running that team as it is anyway. So, I don't think if you're an owner of any pro sport, you should deny an interview with an all-time great player. Do you think Robert Kraft would have declined an interview with Tom Brady once Tom Brady was established as an all-time great? Absolutely not. Robert Kraft, if you wanted to meet Tom Brady today, he's saying yes 100% of the time. It's just about finding the availability and how to schedule it. That's really what it comes down to. So, I don't necessarily know I love the move of Jimmy. If Jimmy Haslam were to decline a meeting with Joe Thomas, would that work out? I don't know. Having said that, though, Myles Garrett might have really just been trying to request a meeting to get out of Cleveland. But having said that, I still think if you're the owner of a team, you should sit down with an all-time great player and just talk. Just talk. Robert Kraft and Tom Brady did it. I mean, come on. Jose Ramirez and the Dolans, I'm sure, have done it numerous times. LeBron James, Jeannie Buss, they're like this at this point. I mean, lockstep here. I would have taken the meeting with Myles Garrett. Having said that, though, in terms of football decisions, no, I think Jimmy Haslam in principle would have been right. Send that over to the GM and Andrew Berry. Stay out of football operations. That's what I would have done. Imagine if Mark Cuban wouldn't have met with Luka Doncic. It clearly seems like he might have not, though, in this situation. I know Mark Cuban's a part owner now, but still in this situation with Dallas, because the GM said, okay, we're sick of you, Luka, go to LA. So that's another interesting one there. But I think if Mark Cuban were to get a request from Luka Doncic to meet, you think Mark Cuban's denying that? That's where I have problems with Jimmy Haslam declining Myles Garrett. But having said that, though, it's fine, and I get the principle of rerouting the meeting to Andrew Berry. So we'll leave it there. Let's move on to the NBA. The Cleveland Cavaliers getting another win over the Milwaukee Bucks. They're just on fire. They look like the best team in the NBA. And my questions, I know I mentioned it on this podcast already, my questions about the Cavs not being able to beat the Milwaukee Bucks in a second-round series are subsided. I think if they get the Milwaukee Bucks or whoever they get in the second round, they're going to win that series in 7 games. 5, 6, they'll win it in 7 worst case. I don't see the Cavs having a meltdown in the second round like I thought was possible before. I thought it was possible this could be a regular season team and the Cavs might have a meltdown in round 2, but that's not going to happen. After they beat Milwaukee the way they just did, that's not happening. And who would their other opponent possibly be? Maybe Indiana or Detroit? They're not melting down against Indiana or Detroit either. The Cavs proved beating the Milwaukee Bucks on Sunday night. They are going to the Eastern Conference Finals, in my opinion, at the very least. They might not beat Boston. I'll say that. They might not beat Boston. I think Boston's a well-constructed team, the other best team in the East. But they are not going to lose to the Milwaukee Bucks. It's not happening. Now, the Milwaukee Bucks will have the best player on the floor in Giannis Antetokounmpo. but they don't have the better roster. The Cavs roster, at all cylinders, you have Jared Allen on the floor. Yeah, defense is going to be really high. You have Evan Mobley on the floor. You're going to have really high defense. You have Darius Garland coming at you if Donovan Mitchell isn't offensively. Jared Allen could be a monster in the paint. Evan Mobley's a monster in the paint. You have a really good bench that's 9 deep at this point. Ty Jerome, Dean Wade, Max Strus for 3. All these guys coming in. DeAndre Hunter now being a huge contributor. Look at that trade for George Niang and Karis LeVert. As much as I liked Karis LeVert, this DeAndre Hunter move, I think, makes it even better for the Cavs. They needed another wing. They got another wing. And the Cavs didn't make any moves the last 2 years. That was the move that needed to be made, and they made it. Props to Kobe Altman, and this team is on the right direction right now. The Cleveland Cavaliers, to me, are going to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they solidified it in that win in Milwaukee on Sunday night. The only thing that might concern me is a Miami Round 1 playoff series, because I think Miami could take you 5 or 6 games, but with no more Jimmy Butler there, that team's not going to the finals. That team's not going to the finals. They might be lucky to get out of a playoff series. And I think Tyler Hero's good enough to win you 1 game in a playoff series. And in a playoff series against Miami in round 1, if the Cavs win it in 5 or 6, that's fine, actually. Because I think Miami's got such a good culture. That's fine to me. But the Cleveland Cavaliers solidified it the other night. Solidified it. They are going to the Eastern Conference Finals. Until I see the New York Knicks win their last 18 or so games in a row. Until that happens. And even then, the Cavs probably still go to the Eastern Conference Finals because the Knicks aren't even on that side of the bracket right now. If the Milwaukee Bucks go on some sort of really good tear to end the season, they've been on a really good tear, but I don't think it's going to be good enough to get them 7 games against the Cleveland Cavaliers. 4 wins in 7 games, I should say. I don't think it's going to happen. The Cleveland Cavaliers just proved to me they're going to the Eastern Conference Finals. And I am going to lock it in. They're going to the Eastern Conference Finals. They're beating the Milwaukee Bucks in a 5-6 game run in the second round. And if it's not Milwaukee, it's a sweep over Indiana or Detroit or something like that. Maybe 5 games. Gentlemen's sweep. They solidified it. They're going to the Eastern Conference Finals. And so are the Boston Celtics, by the way. And that might be a 7-game series. Boston might come out on top. I don't want to disappoint Cleveland Cavaliers fans when I say that. But Boston might come on top in that series. But we don't know yet. The Cavs could too. The Cavs match up very, very well with the Celtics. And I've been saying that for years. Even last year when the Cavs lost in 5 games. I said the Cavs had the potential to match up really, really well with the Celtics. So I still believe the Cavs could match up really well with the Celtics. When you look at the Western Conference right now, LeBron James obviously going to be out for some time. So I'm going to start to buy out of LA Lakers stock. The Denver Nuggets stock I'll buy into. I think that can come out of the Western Conference. And if you play the Denver Nuggets, I'm scared of Nikola Jokic. But the Denver Nuggets of 2023, this is not that kind of Denver Nuggets team. I think Nikola Jokic is the focal point, and they have a lot of other question marks. And yeah, Jamal Murray was pretty good, but Jamal Murray was not nearly as good this year as he was in that 2023 team. So that is your second answer there, but I would like the Cleveland Cavaliers in a 5 or 6 game win. 5 games, 6 games deep, I should say, against the Denver Nuggets in the finals, and that ends up being your opponent if they get there, obviously. OKC concerns me a little bit more. I think OKC also has the gun to their head a little bit because I think Sam Presti needs a championship as soon as he possibly can. But OKC's still very young, but they got beat down in the playoffs last year. They have that experience now. And you look at Golden State, are they a real threat? Golden State's, I think they've only lost 1 game since Jimmy Butler's been there. I don't really buy into the hype, though. I think Golden State, at the end of the day, they're going to play a team like Memphis in the playoffs and lose in 5 or 6 games. They're not a real threat. I don't trust Golden State. Draymond Green, I know he said, we're going all the way and whatnot. I don't believe it. I just do not believe that. The Minnesota Timberwolves aren't going to come out anywhere. They're not the Timberwolves of last year by a long shot. So I think they're missing Karl-Anthony Towns in a big way. And Anthony Edwards, as great as he is, that the Minnesota Timberwolves need some more help on that starting 5. The Houston Rockets are too young. They're not going to go anywhere far. Although I think the Houston Rockets deserve a ton of props for turning that program around as quick as they have. So, to me, the West, I still think the Eastern Conference overall might be more stacked when you look at the teams head-to-head. I think it's been that way for the last couple of seasons. We could probably definitively say the Eastern Conference has been better than the Western Conference. Maybe not last year. But other than that, I would say, if you look at the teams stacked up against each other, I like the Cavs, Celtics, Knicks, Milwaukee Bucks, Indiana, and Detroit over what I see in the West right now. I think the West has some more stars, but complete teams, I don't think so. No team in the West is as deep as the Cavs or the Celtics. I'll say that right off the rip. Oklahoma City, yes. Okay, Oklahoma City is, but no other teams are as deep as the Cavs or the Celtics. Those are the two best benches in the NBA right now. Oklahoma City, very, very close. Oklahoma City is probably 7 or 8 deep, but they're not 9, 10 deep like the Cleveland Cavaliers and Boston Celtics. So OKC is the only team that can compete with the Cavs and Celtics in that arena. You look at the Lakers got a good starting 5 probably overall. I mean, I don't even know if I want to say that. They have a really, really good starting 5 player in Luka Doncic, and another all-time great starting player in LeBron James, who's way past his prime. So I don't buy into that. Denver, obviously, you have one superstar, then you have one really good all-star caliber player in Jamal Murray, but not much else is there right now. The starting 5 for the Nuggets has not been nearly as efficient as the 2023 starting 5 was for the Nuggets. So I don't know if I buy into that. The Memphis Grizzlies have good players. You know, you have John Morant when he's on the court. He's a very productive player. When you have Jaren Jackson Jr., he's a very efficient player. I'll give Jaren Jackson credit there. He's very efficient. And they have, I think, good bench pieces. I think Zach Edey, as a rookie, is starting to develop a little bit. We saw in Purdue he could probably have some star level of potential in the NBA. I don't know if he'll be a superstar or an all-star, but he's been somewhat productive for the Grizzlies this year. I think he averages like 9 points a game. And you look at the rest of the Grizzlies starting 5, I think that's comparable to probably a Denver. I mean, they don't have Jokic. That's the big difference. The Houston Rockets just have so many good young players and good veterans that it kind of just molds into a good culture when you have a good head coach like Ime Udoka. So, I mean, but that team's not that deep. They're not OKC deep. But I will say this when it comes to the Houston Rockets. They did beat the Cleveland Cavaliers twice this year, and I think they're the only team that swept the Cleveland Cavaliers. So the Houston Rockets are a team that, you know, when it comes to the Cavs, you might not want to see them, but honestly, when I look at everybody else, I'm fine with it. OKC is probably the biggest team. The team that scares me the most in the West is Oklahoma City. I don't want to face the most likely MVP of the league in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in a 7-game series. I just don't. I'd rather see the Lakers, if I'm honest with you. And I think that'd be a great story for the NBA, too. Cavs, Lakers in the finals. LeBron James' last finals appearance. Probably going to be finals loss number 7, because I think the Cavs would win that series in 5 or 6 games. But I think in terms of the ratings, it would be there. Obviously in Cleveland, the eyeballs would be on. In LA, obviously they're crazy about their Lakers. There'd be some eyeballs there. But yeah, that's a finals matchup I wouldn't necessarily be against. Now let's talk about some of the highlights from the NBA this weekend. 2 in particular. Kawhi Leonard's game winner. Did you see that for the Clippers? The Clippers are still a retirement home of the NBA, but that was a really, really special play. And Kawhi Leonard still has it in him when he's on the floor, but I don't see Kawhi Leonard winning a championship again. And he's still a very, very quiet superstar player. We never really talk about Kawhi Leonard anymore. We did when he was with the Toronto Raptors, but that was like the last moment in 2020 until they blew the 3-1 lead. But, you know, Kawhi Leonard is still quietly a really, really good NBA player, but at the end of the day, he's just never on the floor anymore, so it's hard to trust that. It just really is. And I do admire the fact he went to the Clippers over the Lakers to kind of stay more under the radar, because that seems to be how Kawhi Leonard operates. Under the radar, and he's done a terrific job of that. But that was a good game-winning play by him. And how about Nikola Jokic recording a triple-double of 30-20-20 in overtime in a win against the Phoenix Suns? That was really impressive for Denver and Nikola Jokic. That was really good. And as I said, the best player on the floor probably in any game is Nikola Jokic. I think he's the best player in the world as it stands right now. So that's why I don't want to see him in a playoff series. But the rest of the Denver Nuggets have not been nearly as efficient this year. And they're still really well coached under Michael Malone, so they deserve a ton of credit. I think the thing with the Denver Nuggets is, could they be like a Milwaukee Bucks where you have Giannis, and obviously they have 2 stars with Damian Lillard on the roster, but nothing else really there. I think the Bucks are also not really well coached with Doc Rivers there. So overrated coach, and I think that's going to be a problem, and I think that's going to cost him his job at the end of the season. But having said that, the Denver Nuggets I don't think are anywhere close to that in terms of the coaching, in terms of the lineups and the roster. The Denver Nuggets are kind of starting to feel a little stale, but they're still a really good basketball team with probably the best player in the NBA, Nikola Jokic. So there's that. There is that when it comes to the Denver Nuggets. That's going to be it for today's edition of Raw Takes with Andrew Hoty. We will be back on Friday for more of my thoughts on sports.
Hopefully there'll be some more NFL moves by that weekend, as well as some good NBA games coming up this week. Hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll keep talking those raw takes throughout the week. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and check out the show on social media with the links below, and also give us a comment. A lot of special shows coming up. My buddy Jake coming on to talk some March Madness in a few weeks, along with the baseball preview show. That's going to be recorded in a few weeks. We're going to have a few panel of people on the show to just give our thoughts on all 30 teams and who we think is going to win each division and maybe win it all in the World Series. Have a good one, everybody. We'll be back later this week on Raw Takes with Andrew Hoty.